So it's
But
actually
it's
not a zoning change. It's just because there's nothing there right now.
correct.
Okay.
Because it's a new construction, and based on the
Okay, that's what I wanted
zoning.
to, it's not,
What mother more? I think we answered her question.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Any more
No,
hands?
there's no zoning change.
No
No,
zoning.
there's no zoning change.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that's it, Gail. Then if you're done with that.
Great. I am. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you for your time. I know you all put in a lot of time and effort, and it's very much appreciated by me and all the constituents in the neighborhood. So thank you so much for your time.
Really appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, Joel, are you on there somewhere?
Yes, good evening. I'm here.
There you are. There you are. Okay, so you're next.
All right. I'm going to just share my screen. That way everybody can see a bit of the presentation as well as the location. So hopefully we figured that out and there won't be any glitches here. Happy New Year to everyone.
You too.
All right. I'm going to try to enlarge this as much as possible here. And I don't know if my colleague Tracy has been able to join. She was having to work this evening, and so she was going to try to break away, but it's possible that she has not been able to. So in that case, if she joins by the end, I'm sure she'll chime in.
Sounds good.
All right, and as always, want to make sure folks are seeing the screen here. So with that, really appreciate the time this evening. So I'm Joel Dixon, principal with Urban Oasis Development, but actually first and foremost was raised in the West Side, actually not too far in the old John Hope University home. So spent a lot of time in English Avenue, Vine City, going to school and etc. But now I have a great opportunity to actually do development. I live about a mile south of you all in historic Adair Park at this point, and have been able to also work with a lot of different residents as well as in organizations throughout the West Side. And so this evening, I have the opportunity to present on a project at 634 Griffin Street that is actually in collaboration with the English Avenue CDC, Community Development Corporation, of which Tracy Bates is the executive director. This is a project that is owned by the CDC and comprises a property, which you can see here on this initial page, is at 634 Griffin. That little dot there is the main lot area at the corner of Fox and Griffin Street. You'll notice in terms of geographically, it is about 1 block off of Donald Lee Hollowell to the north, and 1 block to the east from the English Avenue school. So that kind of just gives you a placement in general. I always like to let folks know that, of course, as developers, we're actually internal and small developers from the community. Tracy has been a longtime resident, actually has been a part of the English Avenue Neighborhood Association, as well as a member of the executive team there for many years. Both of us have been significant community advocates and supporters of development, and as a result of that, have been involved in the Community Builders Program, which was designed to encourage small developers from within neighborhoods to be a part of developing those neighborhoods in a more inclusive fashion. And so we are very excited to work on a project that specifically amplifies and accentuates that. Just to give context, the current property, and I should probably step back a minute. I know many of you may or may not have been familiar with this project. However, we have presented to the English Avenue Zoning Committee, both educational as well as received a vote, which was unanimous, that preceded us to the English Avenue Neighborhood Association General Body, which voted in support for this project in December, I guess it was. And that has led to us now, of course, proceeding to today's body. So we have done a significant amount of previous engagement with a lot of the neighborhood in English Avenue and received feedback, but we are very thankful that we received quite a bit of support along the way. The current site is actually a vacant lot, so this is how it looks as of today, right at the corner there, Griffin and Fox. It is surrounded by single family houses on pretty much every side. Some of those, of course, are unfortunately blighted, dilapidated properties, but nevertheless are currently housing. What we're looking at doing is taking what right now is basically potential with the vacant lot and being able to create something that will actually be more representative of what we all know English Avenue is really about. Vibrance, creating spaces and housing that is attainable, not just affordable, but attainable for all, and creating a mechanism for home ownership. I know we talk a lot about inclusiveness and of course affordability for rental, but there's still a large number of residents who would love to move from being renters to being owners, but currently either afford it or don't have the right types of spaces available to them. And so we do look at this project as being something that embodies all three of those. However, in order to accomplish the actual project itself and provide for that level of attainability, it does require us to provide for a rezoning. And so this goes into kind of some of the higher level details. Currently, the actual land use is single family residential. We're proposing a change to a medium density residential. However, not to throw you off, the actual zoning itself would still be, or the actual product itself would still be a single family house, as we'll see in a moment. However, in order to allow for the density that will accommodate both the attainability as well as allow for more than one single family house, that's the reason why the land use designation. The actual zoning would be from an SPI 3 subarea 1 to an SPI 3 subarea 3. There would be, instead of a single family or single house on here, I shouldn't say single family, but a single house, now the opportunity to have 4 units of housing as denoted on this diagram here. We'll go into a little bit more detail on how that looks in a minute. We have already worked to ensure that, of course, it's complying with all of the requirements from the arborists and the various other city affiliations, including parking requirements as well. Now, to put this into, just very simple, easy to view perspective, this is what currently would be allowed on this site. So the English Avenue Community Development Corporation could just have a single family house built, which would be great for a single household or a single resident, right? However, we feel that because of the need for attainable housing, that the usage of that land could actually be amplified in a way that's very easy. It doesn't require any change to the type of housing, but just to how the housing could be arranged. So what would it look like to enable 3 additional households to also have the opportunity to now own within the English Avenue neighborhood right alongside that initial home? So now you go from 1 single family residence to 4 single family residences. Those residences would be constructed as 1 2-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1,120 square feet. I don't want to overwhelm or get too deep in the weeds about the actual design. From a zoning perspective, of course, we're looking at the land usage. Later on, the design will certainly be more detailed, but it is designed to allow for 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. It is designed to incorporate the look and feel appropriate to the neighborhood as well as to the street. There would also be 3 units that are 1 bedroom, 1 bath, right at 640 square feet. These would be perfectly appropriate for, as we talk about seniors in our neighborhoods. We always, once again, talk about it from the perspective of renting a lot of times. As we'll learn later, we actually have a senior that this is a perfect example for, who would love to, once again, own in English Avenue, but can't really find the appropriate type of housing. Nobody's really building 1 bedroom, 1 bath housing that's appropriate for the size. And once again, from an affordability and attainability standpoint, it's also not affordable or attainable, some of the housing. And so we are looking to do something that has a mixed set of housing types, but also opportunities for home ownership. Now, we didn't actually just come up with this ourselves. And so ourselves, along with English Avenue Community Development Corporation, us being based in the neighborhood, have utilized a variety of different plans. And all of this is what we say we want. From the English Avenue Community Development Plan, or CDP, promote diverse and quality housing types for existing and new residents. From the English Avenue CDP as well, increase home ownership. From the District 3 West Side Revive Master Plan, redevelop vacant and underutilized sites for housing. From the One Atlanta Plan, activate blighted and vacant underutilized properties. From the West Side Land Use Framework, which was also approved within the last 2 years, expand housing choice. And finally, from the One Atlanta Plan, which was approved recently as well, increase density on single family lots through a variety of housing types, accessory dwelling units, cottage courts, and etc. And so we do believe that what we're requesting actually fits alongside the other plans that were generated by the neighborhood and by the community, asking for this type of housing. Unfortunately, a lot of what we have been building doesn't align with what we say we want. Just to give you some perspective, and this is actually using 1950 versus 2017. I know that's now about 3-4 years ago, but it just gives perspective, because a lot of times people ask, hey, why are you all looking to build this type of housing, this size of housing? Well, this is the data behind that. An average household in 1950 was almost 4 people. As of 2017, it was 2.5 people. That's actually gone down slightly to 2.3 people as of last year. The average house size in 1940 for 4 people was under 1,000 square feet, 983. In 2017, it was over 2,500 square feet. Now, we're all in the midst of COVID, and so we understand 6 feet distance and the need for a lot of housing, but the fact that we're saying now we're building housing that is 3 times the size of what was available for fewer people, it seems like there's an interesting mismatch there. Also, the per person square footage is denoted here is 1,000 square feet today in comparison to 300 square feet. And then the final thing that, that we've done a lot of research on is that 75% of households are made up of singles, couples, and seniors with no kids or roommates. However, we're actually building 72% of our housing to accommodate large single family households. So when we talk about a lot of times the difference between who can attain and afford certain things, one of the things is that we're actually building the wrong stuff based on the fact there are a lot of seniors, there are a lot of couples with no kids, there are a lot of singles, all of which are interested in housing, but unfortunately they're having to overpay for housing, or many times just not find it at all. So we look at this as an opportunity to address that mismatch. There's a couple other points that we also discussed within our group as we came up with this plan. One is that there's a known idea that zoning has unfortunately perpetuated historical disparities, exclusions. Most of the time that was racially motivated. Durham, North Carolina last year actually changed their zoning to better incorporate and accept the fact that why would we allow for zoning that has been exclusionary when they wanted to have more inclusionary zoning. And right here in Atlanta, as of last month, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms actually came out and made this statement related to a need to really review and change how zoning is applied even within the city of Atlanta. And once again, that's to both address historical disparities, to address home ownership gaps, as well as rental affordability for legacy residents. And so once again, we believe that this plan and this proposal for rezoning and land use change aligns directly with everything that has been talked about. Now, the final points that we discussed was, how does affordability look? We're all from these areas, from these neighborhoods. It's something that's very important to us. And so we wanted to dive deeper into that conversation to say that this is something we're looking at even from a home ownership perspective. This is actually a chart that shows the area median income levels. So when you hear those terms thrown out of 30% AMI, 50% AMI, 80% AMI, these are the real numbers behind them. You'll notice from a rental perspective, which is this area here, a 50% AMI level is basically a 1-bedroom at $775 a month, a 2-bedroom at $931 a month. And then below that, you'll see kind of some of the home ownership levels, which are based on the price of the home. We have been proposing an 80% to 80% to 100% AMI levels for the for sale component. But what I want to compare is what that actually means in real dollars and cents on a month-to-month basis, because right now we're not actually comparing apples and oranges. We're comparing a 50% AMI monthly rental number, but an actual for sale total dollar amount. But we all know if you're going to purchase a house, you're just going to end up with a mortgage. And so what I wanted to show real time is that what the type of housing that we're looking at doing and the pricing for that housing would be right at, in this case, $148,000, which would be right in the 80% to 100% AMI levels, even without any subsidies. So we have not been promised any subsidies from Invest Atlanta, from the city. If we receive those, we certainly will look to do even greater affordability. But even without any of those subsidies, but allowing for the fact that within the West Side area, this home buyer could take advantage of the Invest Atlanta and other programs for down payment assistance, they're actually looking at a home that they would be paying $717 a month for. Once again, going back to what that was from a rental perspective, it provides for a better opportunity for actually comparing and contrasting what we're talking about. So for $717, a homeowner could now own in English Avenue at a rate that is below the 50% AMI levels for a rental 1-bedroom. And so we feel it's very important to make an apples to apples comparison to say that even though 80% may be looked at sometimes as not affordable for the neighborhood, because of the additional incentives that are available, it actually becomes very affordable. But in addition, it's an ownership model as opposed to just renting. We will, like I said, if provided the opportunity, try to look for additional subsidies on the construction side that might allow for an even deeper level. But because we don't have that today, we're not going to overpromise something, but we do believe, even worst case, we're providing for a great amount or a certain level of affordability. And so now, just to finish out everything and just to show you all that we're intentional in every aspect, the property or the lot was actually formerly owned and had a house, which you're seeing right now, that was owned by the family of Miss Juanita Wallace. Some of you may know her since she's very active within the area. Well, we've been in contact with her. It happens that, of course, Miss Wallace does still live generally on the West Side, but is in an apartment area and would love to come back to the neighborhood if she could from an ownership perspective. So what would it look like to not only provide housing that Miss Wallace could come back to and afford, but on a site where her family was, but also Miss Wallace would now have 3 additional residents or neighbors that would also be able to benefit similar to her. That's really what the point of this is. And so as a final recap, this is me. I'm actually right here next to Tracy Bates as a part of the Community Builders Program. We were called to actually do exactly what we're doing today, which is build housing that is inclusive, to build housing from within that is appropriate for the West Side neighborhood. And so we're very excited that hopefully with the rezoning approval by the body with NPU, that we will be able to do exactly that and see 635 Griffin Street launched within the next year. With that, I will certainly take any questions, comments. We are asking, as I said, we have received approval from the English Avenue zoning. We've also received it from the English Avenue general body, but we'll look forward to receiving that support for both the rezoning and the land use change from NPUL.
Any questions? Anybody? Any hands up?
Mother Moore.
Mother Moore.
Yes. I want to start with the pros, Tracy and company, relative to the project. The project was not unanimous at Neighbor Association. This is a minority position. I was the lone one to say no. What we have is a situation where we either experiment with housing for 4 families or we experiment with the redevelopment of an entire neighborhood. The West Side Land Use Framework Plan was developed to allow us to be able to rebuild our neighborhood basis of a healthy, sustainable community. Every time we change the zoning for radical, we diminish, and I talked to the folks that are experts around our plan, we diminish our capacity to rebuild a healthy, sustainable community. And so specifically, the West Side Land Use Framework Plan provides for a capacity to be able to increase density, but maintain housing design. I don't know if y'all looked at that, but Spring does not do that. Number 2, we're dealing with an infrastructure 100 years old that has not been corrected in English Avenue, which means we are now moving from a single to 4 families on a sewer infrastructure, and we have not seen an environmental.
Mother Moore, you're chopping up. Mother Moore.
And Mother Moore, I think it's broken out.
Then be able to.
Mother Moore, I don't know if
Okay,
others
what
were able
did
to
you
hear
all
you. I
miss?
wasn't able to hear that last point.
Madam Chair, what did you hear?
I think the last thing I heard was I think it was the sewer that you were about to say something.
Mother Moore, you might have to move closer. You might have to come out of that room and come closer up to the part of the house. Storm, I know she's asking about the stormwater runoff.
Yeah. Should I?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
I'm talking about, the last thing when you all interrupted me, or when you told me you couldn't hear me, was dealing with the environmental impact study. Also, the question of setbacks and ground cover area is not being looked at. Our blanket adoption of this zoning change is going to be problematic for us as a community as a whole trying to rebuild. And so I cannot support this because we're either going to experiment with housing for 4 families, or we're going to the whole neighborhood. This is the second or third request for zoning change. We continue to approve zoning changes, Madam Chair, which are not allowing our neighborhood to rebuild English Avenue on the basis of the West Side Land Use Framework Plan, which is what we all spent a year and a half working on to allow us to be able to rebuild in that way. these questions that I'm raising relative to the density are all also questions I would raise with Mayor Bottoms, because the communities with vacant lots are the poor communities. The rich communities are not going to get this density because they don't have vacant lots. So I'm not in support of the plan in knowing if Oasis and English Avenue CDC is prepared to go back to the plan and see what they can do on the basis of the plan that does not require a zone, allow for increased density.
Is that it, Mother Moore?
If I could get a response from the team in terms of the issues around water management, the issues of whether they've looked at our framework plan and the density capacity based on the framework plan with no zoning change.
Should I don't know if that was the end. Should I hop in?
I think that was the end, and I know Colette has her hand up.
Okay.
So maybe you want to take the questions and then, in case what Colette might have to say might be similar. Go ahead,
Okay.
Colette.
Fine. Okay. I had some of the same concerns that Mother Moore had, because and I know I've heard of Oasis before. Urban Oasis, like I'm just not sure where. And I think it's because you all had come before the NPU body before, and several people have voiced the concern about a 1-bedroom, and they were I think several members were saying that our need was greater than 1 bedroom. So the other thing I was thinking is, like, a lot of the developments that are coming from the housing authority are started with senior housing, single housing, but the demographics for legacy residents are not single people. So that's not really making sense to me there. The second thing is the seniors that you're marketing to. Like, well, one, is there a lien placed on the property? Because, I mean, seniors, they're not all gonna die tomorrow, but
She's in a meeting, Zay.
like, I don't know. I'm just thinking like the longevity of the home buyer, that turnover. Have you looked at that? And the reason that I'm saying that is because it really seems to me like the people that you're really marketing to, or who'll take advantage of it, is millennials. And if that's what it is, I'd rather just say that and not say that we're marketing to seniors. Because at that price point, especially in English Avenue, where we have so many students, and graduating students, doctoral students, whatever, it just seems that it would be more towards millennials than it would for seniors. And it wouldn't really be like a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. I don't see that fitting the demographic of the residents that need housing. I mean, single people need housing, but you get what I'm saying. Like the larger demographic pool are single mothers, and they at least need a 2-bedroom. I mean, that's just
great question, great comments, questions. If there are others, I guess it was mentioned, we'll take all of them, then answer along the way. Thank you so much, and thank you also, Mother Moore, for your comments and questions.
I have a couple too. So I read a little bit of Keisha Bottom's thing that she passed. So I saw 1.5 stories, not necessarily 2 stories for in density. My question is, when you go to that corner, the average house that the one house would be facing are 1 stories. And the land use framework plan says keep the character. So in your cute pictures, there are some 1 stories, but then I see 2 stories. My question is, why can't we do 1.5 stories, which would fit more in that neighborhood versus 2 stories? Because if you do 2 stories all the way around, that totally changes that whole corner and the character of it. That on that area, everything is actually 1 story. And I know the house across the street kind of looks like it's 2 stories because on Griffin, it's 1 story, but then behind on the side on Fox, it looks like 2 stories. So that would be my question, and keeping our character would be 1.5 stories, maybe, but not 2 stories. And I'm not even sure how 4 houses would actually fit on that lot. I keep driving past trying to imagine it. So that would be my concerns, is the 2 stories not really fitting the character, but maybe 1.5 stories if you want to go for density and get that 1.5 room in there, whatever you're doing over there. Okay, but that's
Yeah.
my questions. Anybody else?
Thank you.
So I guess you can go ahead and answer our questions.
Okay, yeah, no, great. And do you mind if I also share the screen again? That way, just in case clarifications or people need to see things. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. So just to go back, and once again, one, thank you so much for all of the questions. They're very necessary. I think one of the things that, and it was mentioned, I think, Colette, that you may have heard of us. I don't think you've heard of us in regards to the project you may be referencing. However, Urban Oasis Development has been very involved in community and in development on the West Side. As I said, I was raised there, so a lot of what I'm doing is standing on the shoulders of others and seeing things progress from when I was growing up in the 80s. However, what we are more known for is that we were providing the first permanently affordable housing in English Avenue that was for sale at rates as low as 60% AMI. So you may have heard about us connected to that. However, to start with Mother Moore's questions, which were thoroughly thought out. And as she mentioned, of course, the question around land change, around water, and how that will be impacted, and around the density, as well as, of course, overall the land usage. So Mother Moore, in having your question, because I know you have asked some of the, or maybe a couple of those in other conversations, I just want to note on the actual plans, you know, kind of the structural plans. So we have already gone before all of the City of Atlanta entities. So that's fire, that's water, the arborist, parking. And so we have actually gone before all of them with these plans. In that, there was only one comment, and that was related to the parking, and it was actually the parking on the street. So there's some street level parking and that proximity of this particular one to the stop sign, which is at the corner of Griffin and Fox. Everything else was very well received, from the keeping of the trees, the way in which we were facilitating the parking, as well as for this development, how we would handle actually the water issue. And just to give context, even though we're developers, we're small developers, we're local developers. I actually was just recently on a 3-hour-long watershed and water summit that was hosted by Wawa, as well as Eco Action, 2 very significant entities, neighborhood-based and West Side-based entities that are focused around how we address water issues in the community. This particular one focused around the work that they've been doing in the Atlanta University Center on providing a variety of new types of ways to handle water that basically helps to prevent a lot lot of the water coming from the AUC, which is higher than English Avenue and Vine City, if we collect more of it there, it doesn't filter and fall downward, of course, further south to English Avenue and Vine City. It was tremendous. It's something that we've been doing and working on a lot. In the case of this particular site, you can both hold on to water, one, by the amount of land and actually grass and green spaces there. Also by ensuring that even the parking here, one of the big issues around water is impervious surfaces. In the case of this is actually going to be permeable pavers. It's a type of parking surface. You may notice it in various places, but a lot of times it looks like kind of grass, but maybe it looks gravel with grass. Also, pavers such as ones in like Summerhill and a couple other places, historic West End, on the street, that just basically better direct water, better keep water on a site, and does not allow for as much of the sewer issues that Mama Moore was speaking about. And so how we look at it, Mama Moore, is that even though we're increasing the density of what would have been a single family residence or one home and adding 3 additional units, the overall site itself is incorporating a variety of water, innovative water sustainability programs that should not increase any amount of strain on the actual sewer levels and the sewer usage of this particular area. That has been done intentionally. Once again, that's not something that was forced on us by the city. It's not something that, you know, necessarily everybody is doing, but we understand the issues. We're working with entities on those issues. And so bringing that expertise to this project is just natural for us. I will also say, because, you know, everything related to water it's ridiculous. Like, I'm trying to get Watershed to work on some things in historic West End right now, in the Summerhill area right now. It is something that we have to continue to put pressure on our elected officials, on Watershed, to do what they have been told and instructed to do, and also funding that's being applied. So I'll get off of the
Joe, don't go nowhere yet. Back up
Okay.
a little bit on your waters. So I'm a green infrastructure specialist. I was on that call with Dr. Yomi and Wawa.
Yeah.
And so how are you going to store 2 inches of your rain? Because you're going to create a whole bunch of stormwater. You got 3 buildings going on it, 4 buildings going on a lot that currently is all green space. So the impervious driveway isn't enough.
So
So give me a little bit more here, because
yeah.
I run a green infrastructure park. So I get it. Where's the rain gardens? Give me some rain gardens.
So that's why I said this green space that you all are seeing, once again, one of the benefits of this design, right, is that you can create almost a mini community. So it's interesting that you just mentioned about, you know, gardens and those type of things, because that's what ideally would be designed to have happen. And this is also the reason why going to a slight change in land usage to kind of go push ahead to that is important. With it still being single family houses, but within a kind of a slight change in land usage, that's the type of things that now from a development perspective, we can more easily accommodate on these actual green space sites. Very similar to how the actual parking is. This is not necessarily a traditional way to do a single family residence type parking, right? Everybody would have their own little driveway coming in, but because we want to be mindful of, one, how the parking is, and as you mentioned, the additional ways that we can collect that rainwater, that's why it's almost like a shared parking type of scenario, which is, once again, not traditional to just a simple single family residential, but with the land use change, it better allows for us to accommodate one of the things that you mentioned, but also with this actual permeable pavement structure, it actually will catch more of it across even the non-green space areas. And so that is a really important component. I will say also, Ms. Moore, that this is the reason why we look forward to continuing to work, because I actually have spoken with or set up a meeting with Yomi, as well as the folks at Wawa, just for this site, because while we know a lot of best practices, we're always looking for, hey, are there any additionals that we're not taking advantage of or not thinking about? And so that's how we look at this. One other thing related to, of course, the water side of things. So unfortunately, because of the way that the site is, and really just how zoning and water is in Atlanta, period, you still have the propensity for folks to do what really creates more water issues, even when they don't create density. A lot of the projects now that actually create a little bit more density are required to better address water issues. And that's the reason why when somebody creates a single family residential house, let's just say one house, they're not held to the same requirements as a development like this that is going to have multiple structures. And so once again, we don't a lot of times think about that. And I'm not saying that we should, force single family resident or a single house to be held to the same requirements, but that's the benefit of this being done in a more comprehensive and coordinated fashion, is that we are being held to a much higher standard of requirements to ensure that we're addressing the water issue in a way that even if there was a single house here, would not be liable to. And so we take that on as not something that's a burden, it's something that is expected and desired in order to contribute to the benefit of the water issue, not as a negative.
Okay, sounds good. I'd really like to be a part of that meeting you guys are having with Wawa and Dr. Yomi.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, he's kind of we're coordinating it through them, but I told them we look forward to being an ongoing, set of meetings, because this is a big issue on the West Side, like all of the neighborhoods. And so we're just trying to bring a comprehensive approach to addressing it. Also, Mother Moore, going back to some of your questions, I kind of mentioned one thing about the land change. We are very familiar with the West Side Land Use Framework, very familiar with the English Avenue CDP. I sat in on all of those, or not all of them, a lot of those meetings I attended for the West Side Framework. A lot of those meetings I was involved in and at least attended from the neighborhood perspective with the English Avenue CDP. That's why I provided the information to say we're familiar with each one of those plans that I noted from this slide. And so with that being said, it was not something that we lightly considered when thinking about the land change. Like, we're all about trying to reinforce what has already been selected. But there are times, and you'll notice this in the plans, where certain things actually go against other things. So unfortunately in life, a lot of times there are these contradictions, and they're not bad. I mean, they just are what they are. Sometimes what we need for one reason is why we put one thing in the beginning of the sentence, but then by the end or the beginning of the paragraph, then by the end of the paragraph, in order to accomplish a very also important issue, but maybe slightly different, then we have to include stuff that really doesn't go hand in hand. And so some of the things that related to the zoning and the plans are that everybody, once again, wants activity, wants attainable and affordability, wants to see lots that are vacant be utilized. And while that is the one most important thing, the way in which that happens sometimes can be more amplified or less amplified. We see the opportunity for the land use change not to do something wholesale that would change every single lot throughout English Avenue, but on this particular lot, that there are cases where exceptions, and I think in life we all agree, right, especially with COVID, that we've had to make exceptions based on extenuating circumstances or necessity. I think that this particular site, because it's owned by an entity that is active in the community, interested in amplifying the impact positively in the community, and interested in attainable housing, that these are the types of lots that are not in everybody's hands. There are a lot of lots in, let's just say, traditional developers' hands, folks who don't live here, don't know about it. They're going to do whatever they're going to do within the context of the framework, perhaps. But if you have the opportunity to work with an actual partner that's collaborative, if we can increase density on those types of sites, then that will allow us to accept the fact that those who own other sites where they're going to do whatever on, hey, we won't be able to control that. Here, we're being able to increase the positives of a site that's owned by a positive agent. And so that really was a part of why we really are looking at this site. Like, if we owned lots and if an English Avenue CDC had stuff all over English Avenue, then yeah, maybe we just fit within that and do different things. But when you only own one or two or three, then you're trying to figure out how do we have the greatest impact with what we have in our hand? And so that's the reason why, even though we're very familiar with all of the land usage and the changes, we don't see this as being significantly different in terms of the single family residential nature of the development. It is only a change in the actual ability to positively impact 4 households instead of 1 household. So I know that everybody will have different opinions on that, but that's the actual answer as it relates to the land change. And the density that you asked about is embedded in that, which is with the density, more people can be positively helped. If we say we want to help legacy residents, if every legacy resident is going to fight over the same 1 house, it's going to be counterproductive to us actually allowing more residents to have greater opportunity. And so that's how we choose to look at it, is if we provide a bit more of abundance, then we will bake in attainability and affordability, because we won't be fighting over 1 single family house. And then Ms. Moore, that goes back to your or leads into your question, because I know it was a short question, and then I'll get to Colette's about the 1-story, 1.5 story versus 2-story. We're honestly pretty open in terms of that. The zoning and land use change will allow for more than 1 structure and household. That's the only thing we're really, committed and pushing for. If the desire, as we then proceed to get, permits or zoning or permits, is, hey, we just want it to be a single story, that's perfectly fine. The 2-story nature of it is, once again, to include more square footage within a smaller land area. You can do that with 1.5 stories. We've been doing that actually in historic Adair Park, where it really is a single story house with a loft area that really looks like a single story. And so that could be accommodated and accomplished here. So to your point, it really is kind of like an either or. We just kind of did an initial plan and drawings, but we certainly could go either way on that. For us, it's about the opportunity for multiple households, how that actual housing is. If people want it to be a single story instead of 2, that can be accommodated. And then finally, going to Colette's questions, I think it was around seniors, or really it was about whether this housing type is really focused around millennials. You notice that I didn't use millennials in any of the conversation today, and we haven't at any point in time during our conversations with the neighborhood. This is not about focusing on millennials. This is about, and that's the reason why I wanted to show data. We're not just trying to make up stuff or create whatever. This is data that is actually factual, that the size of or the number of people living in households has gone down. It doesn't mean that in English Avenue, everybody needs this type of housing, because that is absolutely incorrect. During the English Avenue general body, I mentioned this when it was asked, hey, why aren't you building 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms? Well, we're actually doing that. Like I said, we have some permanently affordable 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and 4 bedrooms in English Avenue, but there are residency that creates is an unnecessary battle, right? Because really all they actually wanted was a 1 or 2 bedroom. They're just getting the 4 bedroom because that's all that is available. Well, guess what? That household that really needs the 4 bedroom, if they get outbid or for some reason don't know about that, then they're going to lose the opportunity to get that housing while it's occupied by 1 person or 2 people. And instead, if we were able to offer them this as an additional housing option, hey, here are some 1 bedrooms, here are some 2 bedrooms, then now they're going to shift their focus toward what is more appropriate and allow, once again, that 4 bedroom property to be more appropriate for those who need it. And I gave the example in the English Avenue neighborhood of car options, right? Like there's not a single car option out there, right? We don't all just drive SUVs or all just drive 2-door cars or 4-door cars. There's lots of different sizes of cars. When you have a family, maybe an SUV or a station wagon is appropriate, but if we only made SUVs and station wagons, What about those who maybe just was a single person who didn't have anybody? Now they're buying SUVs and station wagons because that's all that's there. So all we're trying to say is not that everything should be built like this, but that this should be a part of the housing choice options for those who need it. And it is not just millennials. These numbers cover seniors, they cover non-millennials. I'm a Gen Xer, who is married. I have no kids. It would be appropriate for me. It covers those who do happen to be millennials, but it also just covers anybody who's single and maybe looks forward to being in a 1 or 2 bedroom instead of a 3 or 4 bedroom. So I do want to say that we look at this as being comprehensive for a variety of folks. I did mention Ms. Juanita Wallace as one of those who we certainly would look at that fitting a particular profile, but we also think that this will be appropriate for, 1 or 2 seniors, maybe one, married couple without kids, maybe one single that you might classify as a millennial. That's what neighborhoods are made up of, is people that represent.
Thank you. I think you're missing my point, but that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and I would love to clarify if I am missing it, but that was my initial thoughts on the question. Let me know though where
like you're honed in on the word millennial. I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying. I mean, you're hyper focusing on that word. That's not my point. My point is that the housing authority across the street, the housing authority is building a development for seniors. We have one across the street from me, and in the another project on Scholars Landing is for seniors. So of all of the development, like if you count units, a lot of it is geared towards seniors. And I'm saying that the need is for more than 1 bedroom. Like I'm strictly looking at the demographics. I'm just giving millennials as an example. I don't care if it's generation Z, X, Y, W, P, or purple. That's not my point. I'm just saying, let's look at need and how many houses do we have for people that need it. It could be a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. So you're totally missing my point.
Well, I
But
apologize for
good.
missing that point. And so just to, I guess, better, and once again, I appreciate your grace, your mercy in clarifying that, Colette. So if I'm understanding more correctly, because there is a number of developments right now that are 1 bedrooms and happen to be for seniors, let's just say, it was more around the number of bedrooms. Is that what I'm better understanding? I don't know if she's on mute.
Oh, yeah, I was on mute. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Okay.
demographically speaking, we have a lot of small families, and that's where our greatest needs are. And if it wasn't you, it was somebody else who wanted to build 1 bedroom and it got turned down at NPU. But I mean, that's just that was just my memory of, I don't know if anybody else remembers when somebody came to present and they wanted to build 1 bedroom, 1 bathrooms. And that was the major concern. I thought you may have been the same group. You're not. So that's it. I mean, you're only talking about 4 units though, so.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
folks were talking, they were going to build a whole bunch of 1 bedroom houses. I remember that, Colette.
Yeah, and so to that point, and once again, thank you for reinforcing the size of the house, or the number of bedrooms. We do have 1 2 bedroom, 2 bath. We do feel it's very important to have multiple bedrooms and baths in English Avenue. So I want to say, one, I don't disagree with you at all. In order to accommodate a variety of folks on this single lot, like I would love to say we could do something that was across multiple acres, and that would allow for a lot more 2 bedroom and 3 bedroom. As a development entity, we are doing that right now. So as I mentioned, we have 3 other properties that are all going to be 3 bedrooms and more. However, for this site with English Avenue CDC, their desire to do and reach more people is what was requiring it to be, slightly smaller housing. Now, I will say that with the rezoning and the opportunity to build the housing on here, there is the potential, right, to go to a second story or do like 1.5 stories to maybe make more of these 2-bedroom, 2 baths. However, we're constantly just trying to play with the affordability, the attainability aspect. And so that's the other portion of this. However, I do want to reinforce that I don't disagree that we need all types of housing. And I will say that from a 1-bedroom perspective, for us, it also is the difference between renting and owning. There's a lot of people right now who would love to own instead of being subject to the ongoing issues around renting. And the my work recently with the City of Atlanta, with Atlanta Housing Authority, with a variety of groups dealing with a lot of the displacement happening with evictions, the biggest need actually has been 1-bedrooms. And so we're just trying to take all of those different types of data and just incorporate it within a single, relatively small site. Not to say we don't need more bedrooms, but it is showing that the data, like even today, that's what they're looking for. We just want to provide that from a home ownership perspective as well. So I don't know if new questions have come up since I started responding to the previous.
Yes, Frank, because I don't know if Mother Moore's, her hand's just been up, but I'll come back to her. Frank, you can go ahead.
Well, thank you all for talking to me. Happy New Year. I just would like to reiterate what the gentleman is saying, that the demand, the need for a 1-bedroom housing is insatiable. And it's so hard for a developer to build a 1-bedroom unit because they can't make money. So if we have somebody who is trying to build a 1-bedroom unit, I think that needs to be supported, because if he's building it with the intent to serve the 60% AMI population, that's going to be a lot of people. They have a job.
I think it's cut out.
Again, the demand is insatiable for 1-bedroom units. Very much, very huge, gigantic need. And I'm an affordable housing provider. That's what we do. And it's very difficult to find a 1-bedroom unit. So a lot of these old people, they don't even have to be old. They could be a veteran. They could be a veteran on disability. They can't find housing, and they get $3,000 a month pinch a check. They can't find somewhere to live. So, I support what he's doing. Thank you.
And I do want to say, hopefully, and I know this is a conversation, and I know we deal with a lot of developers. Trust me, I've been in meetings. I'm a resident, like anybody else of a neighborhood. And so I want everybody to know this is a conversation for us. Like, we're not trying to put something on top of the community. We're not trying to just do something and run away. This is where we eat, sleep, breathe, and do everything. And so we have done a lot of research, a lot of due diligence, a lot of just data gathering. And so I want you to be reinforced that, as Frank was just saying, and I appreciate those comments, this is not haphazardly been put together. I've been working on this since 2013, 2014 on the for sale side in West Side and South Side specifically, not anywhere else but the South Side and West Side. And so the data, it's just overwhelming. And I wish it was more in the news, because I understand anecdotally what we see in the streets and who we know a lot of times, but it's just the data is not showing that to the levels that we're building. Once again, if we were building, 50-50, or 50% of this, 50% of that, but when you're talking about 75% of our building is going in one direction, and yet that doesn't represent 70% of who's needing housing, that's the discrepancy we're talking about. Not that there's not a need for everything, but it's just right now we're building in a way that is not equal to the actual needs and requirements. So we just want to be a part of helping to balance that out, but we're going to also build, some of the traditional stuff, which we already do as well.
Mother Moore, is your hand up or you just left it up? Or did you have another question?
I don't have a question, I have a comment, and I'm done. I hear what you all are saying, but I'm going to stand with the West Side Land Use Framework Plan. We spent a lot of time developing a plan that was going to allow us not to be gentrified. And for the first time, we got the zoning to protect us. The 2006 plan never got zoning. And so we have a plan that the NPUL, if the NPUL is going to abandon neighborhoods at this stage of the game, then we have essentially lost our fight to have friendly gentrification. The plan is our tool. If you all can do some housing density and not change the zoning, I can support it. But the problem we're having right now is no one is supporting our plan for holistic development of a healthy, sustainable community, not just housing. We can do this housing, and then we're going to find ourselves in gentrification, and the owners of those houses are going to be kicked out, and it's going to look like the fourth ward. If you want a fourth ward, vote for this. Number two, the water question is that those units are going to run into a sewer system that is antiquated, 100+ years old. And this neighborhood has not reached an agreement with Watershed about above ground water management. And there's a plan, but our land use has not approved it. So we don't even have that in place to accommodate what you all are going to build. Finally, if we need to see the reports. If you all have been before people at the city and they approved all of this, Madam Chair, I would like to see those reports so we can have them. And if there's a program for water management, we should be approving the programs for water management. I worked on what happened at the AU Center and Spelman. They have developed a water management system to accommodate water, and the game plan is to put a pond where the post office is. So they have plans for accommodating top of the hill rundown. So we are approving something that we totally are not equipped to deal with, number one, and number two, we're abandoning a holistic community development plan for a wonderful experiment for housing. And I totally hear you. I know what it means. This is a 5-year plan. In 2 more years, our plan will be over, and we have changed all of the zoning, which means we are now a community vulnerable and open to any kind of developers that want to come in here and do what they want to do. Right now, we're in a position to protect our community for a healthy, sustainable development in all areas, housing, business, etc. But if we start nipping at our zoning, we're dead in the water. Thank you.
I do think to one, agree with Mother Moore that that the basis for the rezoning allows for you to now provide the check boxes for those exceptions. And I don't know about everybody else who's been going through rezonings or have been trying to rezone, so I can't speak to those. However, I do believe that if it is honestly the opinion that what we're doing on this small site to provide for 4 residences is going to completely destroy the fabric of the zoning efforts, then I would agree. Don't vote for this. I believe that the framework provides just that framework and guidelines. We're simply trying to say that this is an opportunity that we believe an exception is appropriate, but not to change wholesale, but an exception in a single case. Once again, I don't know what everybody else has been doing and what other large projects are being rezoned, but I do know that this one, based on data, based on experience, based on the parties that are actually doing the development, it seems to fit within the context of the spirit and the written letter of the framework, which was to provide for a diversity set of housing and to accommodate that in hopefully a more attainable fashion. But I totally agree with Mother Moore. If you don't believe that that is happening in this case, we accept that you should not vote given the framework. And the only other thing is gentrification. So I've been studying this gentrification thing for so long, and Mother Moore, the point in terms of like density and doing this project and making it happen like the East Side, is actually the reverse. One of the biggest issue on the East Side was that there was a lot of increase in land pricing, just the cost of land that went up so quickly that it created unaffordable housing. But in addition, not just on the East Side, but everywhere, we build housing on very big lots in the city of Atlanta. Those large lots mean that you have less building. And if you look at the historical levels of zoning in Atlanta, it completely was the reverse. The original zoning in Atlanta by default allowed for 2 residential housing. And it allowed for, of course, ADUs, which unfortunately a lot of times was servant quarters. But because we now build single family houses that are of whatever size on very big lots, that creates a scarcity effect because there's only so much land, right, in any given area. And so by doing a bit more density, and this is not me making a plug for, you know, extensive density everywhere, but I just want to say that when we talk about affordability and anti-gentrification, a part of that is that we have to have land ownership when the land is still relatively affordable. But the other piece is that we have to maximize that land so that it better accommodates more people. And I'm not going to say a lot of people, just more people where it is appropriate. That's what helps to go against some of the natural pressures of gentrification. And I've tried to do it every other way imaginable. It just has not worked when it comes down to an actual full wholesale impact. And even with the great things that Westside Future Fund and the City of Atlanta are doing with the Anti-Gentrification Fund to basically fill in gaps related to the taxes, that is one portion of the problem. But the other portion is just simply the cost of housing. And that cost is being driven a lot of times by the cost of land and the cost of the building. And so the better we can kind of divide up that cost or allow that cost to accommodate more individuals and more households, it can be helpful. It's not the sole toolbox piece. It can be a part of the toolbox from the gentrification side of things. And so once again, this is not to make a plug for our project only, but I will say that we do believe that it is certainly not a gentrification play. This project will do exactly the opposite. It's going to allow for attainable and affordable housing well below what is currently selling even today in English Avenue. And it's going to provide for more opportunities for that housing to be available to more residential legacy residents as well as others. And so I just want to throw it out there because I take that very near and dear. We all do as it relates to gentrification. And once again, if you believe this is a gentrification play, if you honestly think us doing 4 units instead of 1 unit of housing that is at 80% AMI with funding that will allow for it to be even lower is a gentrification play, I highly recommend that you do not vote for this plan because there is frameworks that allow you to check these boxes. And I don't want you to check that box and say, we voted knowing that this is going to create gentrification or break the system of the land usage. So thank you, Mother Moore, for continuing to push and advocate for that, because I agree with you. I want this vote or the support to be based on the fact that this is an exception that is appropriate towards the goals that were the spirit of both the framework and, of course, anti-gentrification.
Okay, so let's see. It is 7:49. We need to vote. Mother Moore, I see your hands up, but I really only have 10 minutes to pull this vote off. Linda Adams, I see your hand up. I'm giving you 1 minute, 2 minutes to say what you got to say because we got to move. I need a motion so we can vote. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Linda.
Can you hear me?
Linda, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I just had a question. This is, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I'm so close to the vote. Is this a recommendation coming or are we voting at the land use level?
We need to vote whether we're going to recommend that we we need to vote to take it to the NPU with our recommendation, yay or nay. How do
Okay,
we
he
feel
said
about
that-
this project?
He said that both committees from English Avenue accepted it, approved it. Is that true?
I think I voted, not really remember how I voted. I know there was some abstentions. There's nobody on the call other than me and Mother Moore from English Avenue. So I think as an NPUL land use, we have to make that decision here.
Well, I can say, and I
I voted
apologize.
no, Miss Linda.
I thought Colette.
Mother Moore said she voted no.
Yeah, I thought Colette that so with English Avenue from the zoning and from the neighborhood, Nicholas Stewart, of course, is the president of English Avenue, and then Tanya Williams is the zoning. They had said that they were going to be submitting the letter of support that was based on the vote. I do believe that there was, I know, one abstention and one no vote. I didn't say how many yeses there were. It did approve, but I know for sure there was one no, and one abstention at the neighborhood level. It was unanimous during the zoning subcommittee. However, that data should be available from Nicholas as well as Tanya, and I thought that they were going to be forwarding it based on my previous communication.
We haven't, I mean, have you received anything, Madam Chair, from English Avenue?
Hi, good evening. Per our bylaws, we're supposed to receive something within 24 hours from both neighborhood associations in regards to any projects that come there. We haven't received anything in writing from the body, not from the land use committee, but from the body of English Avenue. We haven't received anything.
Thank you.
One question I do have, Mother Moore, I know that is anybody who was on that call disagree that there was one abstention and one no, but that it did pass with whatever number of yeses, that it did pass to receive support. Is there any?
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue that. I think you're right. I think I was at that meeting.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to prolong necessarily, but we did spend a lot of time
Can you
going
guys
through.
hear me?
Well, the purpose of our land use meetings, is so that we can go more in detail of, this is what the people wanted, this is what the body wanted, so that we can go in more in detail of the projects that are coming before English Avenue and Vine City, so that we can have this lengthy, conversation, because we can't do this at the NPU. So whatever our recommendations are here, it will accompany the English Avenue and Vine City neighborhood associations, as it always has. But we're gonna make a decision tonight, so that when you come back, because you're coming back to the NPU, to the general body, because there's only 17 people on this call. So you're gonna come back to the NPU when the city puts you on the agenda. And instead of you rushing through your presentation, a 3-minute presentation, this is your opportunity to give the whole spiel and to answer as many questions as possible. So when you come back, what I plan on doing is show everybody this video. I'm going to send it out to people, let them see it so they know the project. And when you come back, you do your 3-minute spiel and we vote on it. We're going to give our recommendations from this committee, and hopefully we can get what we need to get from English Avenue.
Does that
Great.
sound
And
good?
do I need to facilitate? Do I need to reach out? I definitely recall just the process, but if I do need to reach out, just to make sure that I can reach out to Nicholas again and get that, because it was, of course, the zoning voted for theirs, but it was the general body of English Avenue that voted in December.
And just to be clear, and just so everybody on the call can be clear, this project, the recommendation has to come from the body, not from the committee. It needs to come from the body. So everybody from English Avenue have that opportunity to, to voice their concerns and be aware of what's going on in their neighborhood. So it cannot come just from the committee. It has to come from the general body.
So I need a motion from someone out there and a second on what you Is there anybody that wants to make a motion? How about that?
I move that we don't recommend this to the body.
Does anyone second that motion?
Annie, how many voting members do we have? Like, do we have a quorum?
I do need
Yeah.
anybody who did not sign in so they can vote, because you can't vote if you didn't sign in. So has everybody signed in?
I said I couldn't find the sign in.
Okay, well, we can take
It's
Mother.
in, it's
Let
in
me go.
the chat. It's in the chat.
I'm looking in chat and I don't see where I do this.
By the way, Tracy, I just realized, I know I had mentioned to everybody that you might be late. I just realized you're on the call. Apologies if I didn't leave time for you, but feel free to hop in.
Mhm.
Okay, Jen, I
sent-
took her to the link so she could sign in.
Thank you. Okay. And please, everybody, please look at the chat and sign in, because we have 17 people on here. And we have only 10 people that has signed, and it's 7 out of the 10 are voting members.
Mother Moore, just let us know when you're done, because I don't know how
Yeah,
Jen sees
I
it.
sent it.
I also did, I know oftentimes, once again, these are meetings, and I appreciate the level of discussion and the time period. I did put my email address as well as phone number. I believe we did share also this deck with English Avenue, so I'll follow up because maybe nobody even has a copy of that either. But feel free to reach out. I know Tracy, who I just mentioned, is on the call as well, to us personally. I think Mother Moore, you do have my cell phone already, but you know, we're normal people, you know, once again. So to continue this conversation with anybody one-to-one is something that we would welcome, and is a part of what we do anyway. So just wanted to mention that my contact information is in the chat.
Okay, Mother Moore, your motion is gone because nobody seconded. Does anybody have a motion to move this to the NPUL, and what is your motion?
I offer a motion that we not submit until we receive reports from the committees they presented to, and we receive their water management plans, and we receive a report from them as to how they can develop housing that's in keeping with the existing zoning and design.
Mother Moore, could you repeat that again, please?
That we hold it, that we do not recommend until we receive, and we receive reports from the city committees they presented to in writing of what they said. And that we receive their plan for water management and their recommendations around how they could do this, the alternative for doing this density that's in keeping with the framework plan.
And I don't know if, once again, a lot of this, normally they send these things out. The concept review committee is who we presented before, which is made up of all of the primary organizations within the city of Atlanta that are related to sewer, water, you know, once again, parking, arborists. That was held way back in October, actually. I don't know if they normally do submit that information ever. So I'm just not sure, but it was the concept review committee, if in case anybody on the call is previously familiar with engaging them in the past.
Okay, Mother Moore, anybody second that motion? Okay, Mother Moore, nobody second the motion. Anybody else? Motion out there, so we can see what we're gonna do with this.
Madam Chair, I did.
Can I make the motion? This is Tracy.
Yeah. You're a voting member, I don't see why not.
No. Do you have to be a voting member to make a motion at a committee?
Yes, you are a voting member. Go ahead, Tracy.
I make the motion that the Land Use and Development Committee, Zoning Land Use and Development Committee of the NPU supports the project as it's being presented with more information and details to come. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to take them at this time. But I do make the motion that we support the recommendation. I'm sorry, support the project as it's being presented.
Does that, Tracy, let me ask you this, does that mean that if we want to discuss the size of the houses, whether they're 1.5 stories or 2 stories, would that still be something that could be negotiated at a later date, or is that something that should be in our motion?
We're open for discussion. I was just hoping to get us to a point where we can be able to present to the NPU as a whole. And if there's more discussion, maybe that can be presented at that time. But we do need to, at least from the committee level, have a support or lack of support from the committee to present at the NPU.
I second the motion with later discussion. I second Tracy's motion. So we have a first, Tracy, and a second, and raise your hand. Do we have a yes and a no in here, Jen, or no? Or is it a raise your hands and put your hands down type of deal?
It's the yes. Linda Adams, you have to sign in to vote.
I'm like Mother Moore, I couldn't get it to sign in.
Mother
So
Moore got in.
I'll just,
Mother Moore got
I
in.
said,
It's in the
listen, I
thing.
didn't get the chance to get the,
Please go ahead and try to sign in.
never mind, I'll just wait. I just
Okay.
wanted, yeah, so no problem.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So
I'm signing in on the chat.
everything
You see
is,
my name on
if
the chat.
you click on a yes, if you agree with the motion, voting members are those that signed in, and if you disagree, click no. If you go to participants, you'll see a yes and a no. Please click yes or no if you agree for the motion.
Did you erase the voting, Madam Chair? I see it's erased.
No, ma'am, it's not erased. I'm waiting for people to click yes. If you go to participants, you click all those that signed in can vote yes or no. Just go to participants. We've had 3 people so far that have voted. And we have 17 people on the call.
I can see people. So I don't see any. Tracy, did you vote? Your vote went away, or did you take it away, Jen?
I took it away.
No, I see Tracy's.
Okay.
Ms. Bates
Sometimes I
is
can see them, sometimes I can't.
Oh, okay. Ms. Bates is there and Colette is there. I'm waiting for more people.
Do you see
Maybe,
Mother?
I wonder if any people are
Yeah,
having
I see
problem
Mother Moore. Do you have a no, Mother Moore?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think they
we
may be
see
having
you.
a problem finding the area.
More? They keep
We know you voted no, Mother Moore. Did you get them, Jen? Because I can't see anything. They go away and come back.
I know, I don't know if I'm seeing everything. I do see the participant screen where it has 2 green check marks. Normally it would have everybody's. I don't see anything by Mother Moore, of course, you know, as you all noted, her no, but I don't see anything by her name per se.
Yeah, I think it's working different on here, but I think, Jen, did you get them?
3 yeas.
Oh, the ones that disappeared.
Yeah, this, I don't know what's going on.
Somebody put on a trick.
All right, so we have 3 people that voted for Ms. Bates' motion. Who's second?
I did.
Okay. All right. So I guess that's the only motion on the floor, and I don't know how you want to proceed, Chair.
I mean, I guess that, I mean, how many votes do you have to pass a motion? Or is there any abstentions?
No. Oh, there's no abstentions.
So then,
Votes.
do we need a percentage, or does it pass because more people voted for it than no?
Well,
I mean, I've never had this happen before.
yeah, I never had this happen either. So we'll just take the vote. We'll redo our research and come back and let everybody know. Because I want to say for Robert Rules of Order, I believe it passes, but we want to,
We'll
yeah,
be sure.
because this is the first time that's happened for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. This has never happened to us. So we are going to give us 48 hours, Jen, to figure this one out.
Hey, we'll work it out.
Well,
Okay.
well, we've certainly come through a 2020 with a lot of interesting times, you know,
I'm telling
2021. We expect to have the same grace. So I just want to say, once again, thank you for everybody who was listening. Mother Moore, Colette, Ms. Moore, any others who had questions they didn't ask, feel free to still reach out to me afterwards, or Tracy. We do hope to be able to present once again before the general body upcoming on the 12th when we're on the schedule. We certainly will try, as we did with the previous English Avenue neighborhood general body, to answer any questions that were lingering. And so I've noted all of the questions that came out today, and we will try to ensure that we get responses